Just a month after taking on President Obama's controversial health care law, today the Supreme Court will begin hearings on another politically charged and divisive case. Arizona's immigration law sparked a heated debate about immigration and racial profiling when it was enacted 2 years ago. Joining us is Annmarie McAvoy, professor at Fordham University and former federal prosecutor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
What do we expect to hear from these arguments?
Certainly there'll be arguments stating that Arizona has gone too far. The administration will claim that they are usurping federal rights and that they shouldn't be able to have any sort of input, really, certainly as to what they're doing in the realm of immigration. And on the other side, you're going to have a lot of arguments saying that the federal government left a vacuum and the states have a right to act, and that the states have for a long time worked in conjunction with the federal government. They've had access to databases relating to immigration information and so on, so that there should be no reason why they shouldn't be able to fill that vacuum as long as it doesn't conflict with what the federal government has been doing.
Well, New York Senator Chuck Schumer said Tuesday that if the Supreme Court stands with this law, that he's going to propose legislation that prevents states and local authorities from enforcing their own immigration rules. Would that work?
Well, he certainly could propose a law. Whether it gets passed is the first question, whether he can get something like that through. And then if it does go through, whether it'll stand judicial scrutiny down the line. I mean, the traditional thing has been that if the federal government doesn't act, that the states have a right to. However, if the federal government says specifically they don't want them to act, that would change this landscape, and it would stop a law from this, assuming that Schumer can get that law through and that the courts don't strike it down later on.
You know, it's interesting to note that this will be the second time that Justice Elena Kagan will sit this one out. This decision she will not participate in. Will it have an impact?
It could. It could actually leave a very interesting vacuum for the court, because it could leave it with a 4-4 decision, which would mean basically a tie. And what that would mean is that in turn, the decision of the circuit court, the Ninth Circuit Court, would stand. So essentially, the justices could argue this out as much as they want. If there's no tiebreaker and it turns out to be a 4-4 decision, then it's all for naught. And if that happens, that doesn't mean that the Ninth Circuit decision will rule the land. It means essentially that there won't be any sort of guidance from the Supreme Court to the other states who also have enacted these types of laws.
What does your gut say? Are you willing to make a call on this?
It's hard to say. I think that there is a good chance that Arizona's law will stand in some form. There may be certain provisions, I think, that they'll strike down. But I think the law has been that if the federal government doesn't act, that the state has a right to act as long as it's not a conflict to that. So I think that it will stand. But again, I think certain provisions may be blocked out of it.
All right. Annmarie McAvoy, professor at Fordham University and former federal prosecutor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.